7 days after, her neighbors called the police when they heard screaming from her house in the middle. Don't look back, and whatever you do, don't answer.
Undead City. The night comes alive. Believe it or don't. It's entirely your choice.
Yes, believe it or not, the choice is yours. Are you ready to listen? So, sit back, if you dare, and listen closely.
Tap, tap. It always starts the same way. A gentle knocking, almost polite, like someone trying not to disturb you too much. But it's 3:17 a.m. No one should be knocking, not at this hour, not every single night, not when you checked, and there's never anyone there. So why does the knocking keep coming back? And why is it getting louder?
We've all heard strange noises at night. The house settling, the wind against the windows, the neighbor's cat. We tell ourselves these simple explanations because the truth is too frightening to consider that sometimes the knocking is coming from something that doesn't want to be invited in. It's just confirming you're there, listening. Emma Parker first heard the knocking 3 months ago. 3 soft taps on her bedroom wall right above her headboard. Tap, tap, tap. She thought it was her husband, Mike, messing around, but he was sound asleep beside her. The clock read 3:17 a.m. I checked the whole house, Emma told me. Nothing was out of place. No branches hitting the wall outside. No water pipes making noise. Nothing. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same 3 taps, same spot on the wall. By the 5th night, Emma and Mike were sleeping in their living room, but the knocking followed. 3 taps, always at 3:17 a.m., always starting gently, but growing louder each night.
Nah, we thought it might be the neighbors, Mike explained. But when we asked them, they looked scared. They'd been hearing it too, but thought it was coming from our house. By the end of the 2nd week, the entire block was talking about the knocking. Some houses were spared. Others reported the same experience. 3 knocks, always at 3:17 a.m. with no visible cause, and always growing louder, more insistent night by night. Emma and Mike's case isn't unique. Reports of mysterious knocking have surfaced throughout history and across cultures. In almost every instance, the pattern matches. The knocking begins gently, occurs at the same time each night, and grows progressively more demanding. In a small town in Wisconsin, the Jenkins family endured 6 weeks of nightly knocking before calling in paranormal investigators. By then, the knocking had evolved into heavy pounding that shook family photos off the walls. We set up audio equipment, motion sensors, thermal cameras, everything, explained paranormal investigator Dana Reed. What we captured was disturbing.
The audio recordings revealed that what sounded like simple knocking to human ears was actually something more complex. When slowed down and enhanced, the researchers could make out words hidden within the knocking pattern. Let Mr. in. 3 syllables, 3 knocks. But what exactly wants to be let in? According to folklore from around the world, there are entities that cannot enter a home without invitation. In Romanian tradition, these are called strigoi, restless spirits that knock on doors and walls seeking permission to enter. In Japanese folklore, they're known as makura gaishi, spirits that disturb sleep by making noises at night. Similar legends exist across nearly every culture. Dr. Harriet Blackwood, who studies comparative mythology at Barrett University, explains that these legends may have a common source. The idea that certain supernatural entities need permission to cross thresholds appears consistently across disconnected cultures. This suggests either a shared ancient origin for these beliefs, or, more unsettling, that these experiences were common enough worldwide that similar explanations developed independently. The most disturbing aspect of the knocking phenomenon is what happens when someone finally answers. Caroline Miller from Oregon made the mistake of responding after 2 weeks of nightly knocking. It had gotten so loud I couldn't think straight, she recalled, her voice shaking even months later. So I finally shouted, "Come in already," just to make it stop. The knocking did stop, but something worse began. Caroline woke the next morning to find all the doors in her house standing open, including ones she distinctly remembered locking. Objects would move when she wasn't looking. She would catch glimpses of a shadowy figure in reflective surfaces, never directly, only in mirrors or windows or the black screen of her turned-off TV. It was like once I invited it in, it was playing with me, Caroline said, like a cat with a mouse. 3 days after answering the knocking, Caroline began to hear whispering from empty rooms. 5 days after, she woke up with unexplained scratches on her arms and back. 7 days after, her neighbors called the police when they heard screaming from her house in the middle of the night. When officers arrived, they found Caroline huddled in her bathroom, doors locked, reciting prayers. The rest of the house was in disarray, furniture overturned, walls scratched, and most disturbing of all, a message written in what appeared to be ash on her bedroom wall. "Thank you for the invitation." Caroline never spent another night in that house. No one has lived there since. Dr. Elena Santos, a sleep specialist who has studied cases of nighttime paranormal phenomena, offers a scientific perspective. Many of these experiences occur during what we call the dead zone, between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., when human alertness is at its lowest ebb. Our brain chemistry shifts, making us more susceptible to both misinterpreting normal sounds and experiencing hypnagogic hallucinations. But this explanation falls short when multiple people hear the same knocking or when physical evidence is left behind. The Brenner family in New Hampshire set up cameras after weeks of nightly knocking. The footage they captured shows something that science struggles to explain. Their living room wall developing 3 distinct bulges as if something was pushing against it from the other side. The bulges appear at exactly 3:17 a.m., lasting for precisely 3 minutes before subsiding. There was nothing behind that wall, David Brenner insisted. It's an exterior wall. We checked outside immediately after. Nothing was there. What makes these knocking entities particularly terrifying is their patience. They don't give up. Night after night, they return. Tap, tap, tap. Growing louder, more insistent, testing your resolve, your sanity. They're wearing you down, explains paranormal researcher Thomas Griffin. That's the purpose of the knocking. It's psychological warfare. They know eventually exhaustion will make you vulnerable, make you respond, make you invite them in. For those currently experiencing the knocking phenomenon, Griffin advises against acknowledging it in any way. Don't speak to it. Don't knock back. Don't even think of it as someone knocking. That's personifying it, giving it what it wants. And whatever you do, never, ever invite it in. Some families have found temporary relief by performing cleansing rituals from various traditions, burning sage, sprinkling salt across thresholds, reciting prayers or protective incantations. Others report success with more modern approaches like playing white noise to mask the sound or using sleep headphones. But for many, the only effective solution is to leave the house entirely. The Williams family abandoned their home of 17 years after just 10 days of knocking. The final night, it wasn't even knocking anymore, James Williams recalled. It was like someone was taking a sledgehammer to our wall. The whole house shook. And then we heard a voice, clear as day, say, "Soon." They left that night taking only what they could carry in their car. Researchers have noted geographical clusters of knocking incidents, suggesting these phenomena may spread like contagion through communities. One neighborhood in Michigan reported 12 affected houses over a 2-month period in 2021. The knocking began in one home and spread house by house down the street.
Most disturbing are the cases where the knocking suddenly stops without explanation. Mia Jang experienced nightly knocking for nearly a month. Then one night, nothing. The silence was almost worse than the knocking, because something had changed. Something was different. The next morning, she discovered her elderly neighbor had died in his sleep. The knocking never returned to her house, but within a week, residents 2 doors down began reporting it. It's like it found what it was looking for, Mia suggested, or someone finally let it in. For those currently lying awake, listening to unexplained knocks in the dark, know this. You are not alone in your experience. Thousands have endured the same terror. Some have found ways to resist. Others have succumbed. The most important advice from those who have survived: maintain your boundaries. Whatever is knocking, it needs permission. It needs to be invited. As long as you deny it, that invitation, you maintain some measure of control. There are spaces between our world and others, Dr. Blackwood theorizes. Thin places where boundaries can be crossed. A persistent entity might find such a thin spot in your home, a wall, a door, a window, and begin knocking, testing for weakness. Not just weakness in the barrier between worlds, but weakness in your resolve. Tonight, as you lie in bed, pay attention to the sounds your house makes. The creaking floors, the humming appliances, the ticking clock. Become familiar with them. Know what's normal, because if you hear something different, if you hear 3 gentle taps somewhere in your home at 3:17 a.m., you'll need to make a choice. Will you answer? Will you invite it in? Or will you lie perfectly still, eyes squeezed shut, pretending you didn't hear anything at all? Just remember, it's patient. It will come back tomorrow night and the night after, each time knocking a little louder, a little more insistent. Tap, tap, tap. It knows you're listening. Walking alone through the park. The path stretches ahead, empty except for fallen leaves dancing in the breeze. Then you hear it, someone calling your name from behind. You turn. No one's there. The path behind you is empty. You keep walking, a little faster now. Again, your name closer this time, like a whisper right at your ear. You spin around, still no one. That's when you realize something is following you, something you can hear but not see, and it knows exactly who you are.
Parks are supposed to be places of peace, green spaces where we escape the noise of daily life. But for hundreds of people across the country, these seemingly safe havens have become sites of unexplainable terror, places where something unseen calls to them, follows them, and sometimes takes them. The first documented case was Jason Miller, a 34-year-old accountant who regularly jogged through Oakwood Park in Illinois. Last spring, Jason's routine evening run turned into a nightmare. I was about halfway through my usual route when I heard someone call my name, Jason recalled, his voice still shaking months later. It sounded like it was coming from right behind me, but when I turned around, there was nobody there. Jason continued his run, trying to shake off the strange experience, but the voice returned, closer, more insistent. The second time, it didn't just say my name, it said, "Jason Miller, stop running from me." That's when I got scared. Nobody calls me by my full name like that. Jason picked up his pace, but the voice kept following, getting closer, more demanding. Then he felt something brush against his shoulder. I couldn't see anything touching me, but I felt it, cold fingers just barely making contact. That's when I started sprinting. Jason made it home safely that night, but the experience left him deeply shaken. He avoided the park for weeks afterward. When he finally returned in broad daylight with a friend, nothing unusual happened. He began to think he had imagined the whole thing, until he checked his phone. I was going through my photos and found ones I didn't take. Blurry pictures of the back of my head from that night in the park. Something had been following me, taking pictures, and I never saw it. Jason's experience might sound unique, but it's not. Reports of similar encounters have emerged from parks across the country. The pattern is eerily consistent. A person walking alone hears their name, called from behind, turns to find no one there, and the voice continues to follow them, growing more persistent.
In Seattle, 26-year-old Emily Chen was walking through Discovery Park when she heard someone softly call her name. Like Jason, she turned to find an empty path behind her. "I thought maybe I was hearing things," Emily said. But then it happened again, and the voice knew details about me. It said, "Emily Chen from apartment 4B, I've been waiting for you." That's when I knew something was really wrong. Emily began walking faster, then running. The voice followed, always seeming to come from just inches behind her head. Then Emily noticed something even more terrifying. Other people in the park couldn't see her. I ran past an older couple and tried to get their attention. They looked right through me like I wasn't there. That's when the voice whispered, "They can't help you now. You're already halfway to my side." Emily doesn't remember how she got home that evening. She has a gap in her memory from the park to waking up in her apartment the next morning. But she found leaves from the park scattered across her bedroom floor, leaves that weren't there when she left. Dr. Marcus Reeves, who studies unexplained phenomena, has collected over 50 similar accounts from parks across the country in the past 2 years alone. What's particularly disturbing about these experiences is their consistency, Dr. Reeves explained. The voices always come from behind. They always know the person's name and often personal details. And they always seem to be trying to get the person to stop walking or turn around. Dr. Reeves believes these encounters might be connected to the unique nature of parks themselves, spaces that exist between the natural and human-built world. Parks are liminal spaces, these thresholds between the urban environment and nature. Throughout history, such in-between places have been associated with strange encounters. The most troubling cases are those where people report not just hearing voices, but feeling physical contact, like Jason Miller's experience of cold fingers on his shoulder. Some describe the sensation as like spider webs brushing against their skin. Others report feeling a hand trying to grasp their arm or shoulder. Dr. Elena Martinez, a folklore historian, sees connections between these modern encounters and centuries-old stories. In European folklore, there are numerous accounts of supernatural entities that call to travelers from behind, trying to lure them off their path, Dr. Martinez explained. The Swedish Naken would call people by name to lure them into waters. Similar entities exist in folklore worldwide, beings that know your name and call to you when you're alone in natural spaces. For those who've experienced these encounters, such folklore feels uncomfortably real. Michael Davis was cutting through a small park on his way home from work when he heard what sounded like his mother's voice calling him from behind. What made this especially terrifying was that his mother had passed away 3 years earlier. It was her voice exactly, calling me the way she used to when I was a kid, Michael recalled. I knew it couldn't be real, but it sounded so much like her. When Michael turned, he saw nothing. But the voice continued, now using phrases and references only his mother would know. It said things only my mom could have said, mentioned memories we shared. Then it said, "I've missed you so much. Don't you want to see me again? Just close your eyes and I'll take you to where I am." Michael ran from the park and never returned. But in the weeks that followed, he found himself dreaming of the park every night. Dreams where he walked the same path and finally turned to see who was calling him. Those who study these phenomena offer this advice: if you hear someone call your name in a park and find no one there when you turn, don't stop walking, don't engage with the voice, and most importantly, don't close your eyes. Whatever these entities are, they seem to want acknowledgement, Dr. Reeves suggested. The cases with the worst outcomes are those where people stopped, engaged with the voice, or worse, followed it off the established paths. Some parks with multiple reported encounters have begun posting warning signs advising visitors not to hike alone, especially near sunset. A few have closed entirely after dark, but such precautions are rare and most people enter parks without any awareness of the potential danger.
The next time you're walking through a park alone, pay attention to the sounds around you, the rustling leaves, the distant traffic, the birds calling to each other. Know what's normal, because if you hear your name whispered from behind when no one should be there, if you turn to find an empty path where a voice just spoke, you'll need to make a choice. Will you stop and listen? Will you answer? Or will you keep walking faster and faster, eyes fixed ahead, ignoring the voice as it calls to you again and again? Just remember, parks are the places we've carved out between our world and the wild. Thin spaces where things can slip through, things that know your name, things that want you to turn around, things that have been waiting for someone just like you to walk alone on their paths. So keep walking, don't look back, and whatever you do, don't answer when it calls. 2018, construction workers renovating a KFC in Tennessee made a discovery that was never supposed to see daylight. Beneath the foundation, sealed in concrete, they found a metal box with documents bearing the colonel's signature and coordinates to 19 locations across America. When investigators checked the first 3 sites, they immediately stopped and classified their findings. What did they uncover beneath these fast food restaurants, and why has KFC bought back every single location on that list? Today, we explore the buried secrets that the fried chicken empire never wanted you to know. Let's start with what we know for certain. On June 12th, 2018, a construction crew began renovating the KFC in Pleasantville, Tennessee, a location that had operated continuously since 1973. During excavation to expand the foundation, worker Mike Harding's equipment struck something metallic about 6 feet below the original floor. "We thought it was just an old pipe or something," Harding told local reporters. "But when we cleared away the dirt, we found this box that looked like it had been deliberately encased in concrete when the building was first constructed. The metal container, roughly the size of a safety deposit box, was sealed with a combination lock. Inside, they discovered a leather portfolio containing 20 pages of handwritten notes, a map with marked locations and photographs that the workers described as disturbing. Before authorities confiscated everything, what happened next is where this story takes a bizarre turn. Within hours, men identifying themselves as KFC corporate security arrived and shut down the site. Workers were asked to sign non-disclosure agreements and offered significant cash payments to forget what they'd seen. The renovation was canceled, and within 3 weeks, the entire building was demolished. Unusual considering the company had just invested in upgrading it. Through conversations with former employees and public records requests, we've pieced together parts of what those documents contained. According to sources who saw the contents briefly, the papers included letters written by Colonel Harlan Sanders himself, dating back to 1971. The letters referenced something called the Preservation Project and included a map marking 19 KFC locations across the country. Next to each location was a series of numbers and the cryptic phrase, "depth 12 to 20 feet." 3 of the locations had been checked off with dates in 1972. The rest remained unmarked. Local reporter Sarah Chin began investigating and discovered something odd. Of the 19 locations listed, 17 had been built between 1971 and 1973, a period when KFC was rapidly expanding nationwide. What made these particular restaurants special? Chen tracked down James Westbrook, a retired architect who worked on KFC constructions during that era.
Though hesitant to speak on record, he eventually revealed that certain locations had unusual requirements in their foundation designs. "We were told these stores needed extra deep foundations for soil stability," Westbrook explained. "But the geological surveys didn't justify it, and the concrete pours for these locations were scheduled overnight, with special crews brought in that weren't used at other sites." Most telling was his final observation. The weird thing was the empty space they designed into the foundation itself, like they were creating vaults beneath the buildings. The story might have ended there if not for what happened next. Within 6 months of the Tennessee discovery, KFC Corporation began buying back franchise locations that matched coordinates on the map. To date, 15 of the 19 sites have been purchased by corporate, often at prices well above market value. At 2 locations, in Marion, Indiana and Fresno, California, the company conducted what they called routine maintenance that involved extensive excavation work. Both restaurants were closed for exactly 11 days before reopening with no visible changes to the buildings. When Chen filed Freedom of Information Act requests for the construction permits, she received heavily redacted documents. The only clear information was that the work involved subsurface structure maintenance at depths of 15 to 18 feet. So what exactly was buried beneath these restaurants? Former KFC executive William Carson, speaking anonymously, provided a potential answer. According to Carson, in the early 1970s, Colonel Sanders became obsessed with preservation, not just of his secret recipe, but of something more personal. The colonel had this belief that certain objects contained energy, psychic imprints, Carson explained. He collected items from important moments in his life and the company's history. There were rumors he was creating time capsules, but with a purpose beyond mere commemoration. Carson claimed that Sanders had conducted experiments with food preservation techniques that went beyond her cooking. He was interested in how certain combinations of spices affected not just flavor, but longevity. He had theories about natural preservatives that could maintain organic material indefinitely. The most disturbing account comes from Robert Martinez, who worked maintenance at the Fresno location in the 1990s. During renovations, he accidentally accessed a small concrete room beneath the kitchen area. "There was this chamber about 8 by 8 feet, Martinez recalled. Inside was a glass case containing what looked like organic material preserved in some kind of amber-colored substance. There were papers with it, but everything was sealed. The next day, corporate security showed up and sealed the access point. I was transferred to another location the following week." Martinez's description matches similar accounts from 3 other former employees at different locations on the map. All described sealed containers with preserved organic material, all discovered during maintenance work, and all quickly concealed by corporate intervention. So what's the significance of these 19 locations? Researchers noted that when plotted on a map, they form a pattern resembling the constellation Cygnus, known as the Northern Cross. In some cultures, this constellation is associated with passage to the afterlife. Perhaps most telling is that in 2019, KFC Corporate updated their emergency protocols. A leaked internal document includes a specific procedure labeled Heritage Discovery Protocol with instructions for immediately securing any historical artifacts found during construction and contacting a special number not listed in any other company materials. What secret is KFC hiding beneath its restaurants? Are these simply time capsules from a nostalgic founder or something more sinister? The company continues to purchase the remaining locations on the list, with only 4 yet to be acquired. Some speculate the colonel was creating a network of preservation sites for reasons known only to him. Others suggest these locations form some kind of ritual pattern, storing objects with personal significance to Sanders. Whatever the truth, One thing is clear. Something lies beneath selected KFC restaurants across America. Something the company is willing to pay millions to keep hidden. The next time you're enjoying your fried chicken, consider what might be resting in the earth just 12 feet below your table. Some secrets, like recipes, are meant to stay buried. What do you think lies beneath these KFC locations? Share your theories in the comments, and if you happen to work at one of these restaurants during renovations, pay attention to which areas they keep employees away from.